Apologies for the cough. Hopefully, I didn't go live until after I coughed. Hello again. I thought I would just do one more chapter, I think, tonight, chapter 21, which is headed Family. So if you're new here, hello, I'm Alex Spear. I write these novels. This paperback is on Amazon. Depending on where you are, you can buy it in America for $6, or you can buy it in the UK for £6. And I believe it is for sale across a number of other countries, including Australia and a whole bunch of others, actually, if you have access to Amazon. But I don't know the specific local prices, I'm sorry. I have tried to adjust them so that you're paying roughly the same, allowing for currency conversion. So here we go with chapter 21, Family, and we're finding out a bit more about what's happening with this murder mystery. This is dated February 2025. Apologies if I cough a little, I've had the flu. I'm just going to take a sip of water. I'm going to try not to sound too squeaky. I hope you're managing to avoid the germs this time of year. This was a Mardi Gras throw. It's worn off a bit now. Which crew was that? Can't see. If you recognise the logo, let me know. I think that probably a friend of mine gave me this. I don't think it's a parade that I went to. Right, so it says, Julie had been missing her brother since he had made it and moved to California. He had seemingly ignored her ever since, even though they had been so close when they were young. After writing him and being disappointed over and over by his lack of response, she had tried to pretend she didn't carry the weight of his absence. And it did feel like weight, or perhaps more like a wound. She had carried on as if it didn't bother her for years, decades. But now in her 80s, she was learning that if you keep on and on trying to outrun something, eventually you will be exhausted and it will catch up to you. Now she has learned that Roosevelt died some time ago. She has received a lot of money from him and moved into a fancy new home. It is a lot. She has become rich beyond her wildest dreams, and she does not want to be ungrateful. It seems cruel that God would take away her brother in exchange for this money, which she would have liked to share with him. Heck, given the choice, she would trade. She would rather have her brother in her house, in her life, even if it meant she had to carry on living her old impoverished lifestyle. It makes her so sad to think that she and Roosevelt had had so little time together. Everything about it is a tragedy. Julie isn't quite sure she wants to tell Charles the detective about the personal family information she found out by travelling to San Diego. Let him find out himself if he wants to, she thinks. All she wants to do is be left alone to grieve and to press on with her projects to improve the city she loves so much. Julie has to go into the multi-purpose building on Poydras to file documentation about the purchase of her new bigger house. The Social Security office is in there, and also Charles seems to have a little cubby where he interviews folks. People have started to drop in with general complaints, things they think that law enforcement should be handling for them. Charles tries not to lose patience with these endless gripes and grievances that he feels are beneath him now he has been promoted up through the ranks. Today he has the pastor of one of the local churches, Innocent, and also one of the pity-pat crowd, Estelle, clamouring for him to make notes of their concerns and resolve them on the spot. Julie looks on with a slight twist to her mouth of wry humour. Charles has evidently been running his hands through his hair till it has all stuck up on end. It is only 10 in the morning, but he seems exhausted already. What about this wild dog that has been running around? Estelle wants to know. Charles frowns. We have not yet gotten to the bottom of that mystery, but we will. It's a rougarou, whispers Innocent. Oh, don't be ridiculous. Charles tries and fails to control the volume of his voice. It must be somebody's escaped pet. It happens every time we have a hurricane. Just think how many times New Orleans has had to be evacuated. Not everyone can afford to take their cats and dogs with them on a plane when they have to get out of the state in a hurry. And even if you drive to a hotel, not all of them will let you bring your pets. Have you seen this dog? Julie is asking Charles gently. He is a little bit creepy. He has a strange presence about him, like a man in some sort of werewolf suit. He is just too silent. His eyes are too human. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he turns out to be something supernatural. Charles feels he does not have time for this nonsense. He is preparing to arrest the individual he believes carried out the murder at Miss Julie's party. When Charles has gathered enough evidence, he knows he will hand it over to one of the clever lawyers whose job it is to convince the jury. It's not just about the facts of the case, he knew. A jury would be impressed by a lawyer who they believed knew the law and had correctly interpreted it. He had learned how to argue from birth with his mother. He did not know what they would diagnose her with these days, but one thing was for sure. She craved conflict. The drama and intensity of a fight was all that kept her heart beating, gasping for breath to retort. She would put him on the spot as a child and make him argue his case. So he had become good at it and learnt how to destroy her adult intellect with his superior use of the game. He had met up with her perhaps 5 times since he had left home. If she was impressed by his senior detective work now, she didn't say that. And he would try not to get dragged down a rabbit hole of blame about those days. Mother, it was not rebellion. I didn't listen to you because everything was drama with you. Everything you said was to score a point and to hold a grudge against someone somewhere. Enough. You had no right to use me to fight your battles. As soon as I got away from you and your ideas, I blossomed. Over the years on the job, he had learned about the worst kind of human behaviour. There is a protest outside on Poydras, and a bunch of locals with placards are blowing whistles. Charles has no time for any political party. He thinks most of those guys are liars and crooks. He may have some strong opinions on single issues here and there, but there is no way he will ever toe the line when it comes to one side or the other. Some days he isn't even sure whether the regular folks he has to deal with in this job should even be consulted about politics. Democracy means we have to let these toddlers be in charge and find out the hard way why we shouldn't eat candy for breakfast or play with matches around the dog. He has little patience for anyone he sees as privileged or spoiled. There are kids now who get expensive vacations and their mobile phone paid for, and yet they hate their own mom and dad who are paying for it all. That did not sit right with him, as he had always had to pay for everything himself. He saw these college kids as snowbirds chasing the sun, never having to just be in the winter weather, never having to experience cold or dark. But this seems to him to be a refusal to accept death. Grieve and surrender to your own mortality. Life is sometimes hard, and we are not really able to control what happens to us. That was Charles's take on things. Now, Miss Julie is a worthy recipient of unexpected money, Charles thinks. Being poor her whole life meant that ongoing worries and niggles just cannot be attended to. Her phone overheats when it charges. She has open sores on her lower legs that have scabbed over and refuse to heal in months. Charles and others hope she will go to the doctor and someone will pay for her to have some real medicine. Those natural remedies and magic spells did not seem to be doing the trick anymore. Her body is tired, old, broken, sick, and she deserves to rest in luxury. Charles believes that every older person does. Now the money is there in her bank account. She can deal with issues immediately. Patience and humility and struggling to get by are no longer required. Yet she still seems to be putting the whole city ahead of her needs. She is a good woman, however mean she is to him, Charles thinks. It is a shame that this family mystery had brought Miss Julie a lot of stress, but the upshot of it was that for once the right person was getting rich. That's the end of chapter 21. And chapter 22 is called Fights. It's not too long. Perhaps I'll just carry on. Let's get that done too. So chapter 22, Fights, is dated March 2025. Charles is still thinking through which of the murder suspects has a history of violence. Emmanuel Peters is a mean drunk, everyone knows that. He had been rather disrespectful at the dinner for Julie's good fortune, calling out for more booze when he wasn't the one paying. The others had told him to calm down. Emmanuel Peters always says he is Irish, but he sounds by turns Sicilian and Cajun. This city has drawn Catholic families from all over the world. He has a distinctive craggy face and a broken nose bent to one side, and his light Creole skin sometimes means he gets hassled by the cops who think he is Hispanic. Charles knows of him by reputation. Before he sets off to interview him, Charles grabs a file of notes. He shouts through to one of his co-workers, a tiny little woman named Blanche. "Where did we get to on breaking up that ridiculous Fight Club boxing stuff? You remember, in Central City?" "Yes, sir. I updated the file. You have all the notes right there," Blanche confirms. "Why do I feel like a guy named Emmanuel Peters was involved?" "We couldn't prove it, but a couple witnesses said he was the ringleader. It was his idea to get homeless dudes to fight each other for money." "Why did I think it was him?" "He was unhoused himself for a while back in 2020. You tried to bring him in for killing one of the other dudes in the tent city, but the CCTV footage was not clear enough, so it was never proved either way, and no one would come forward about whether it was him." "Where does he live now?" Charles asks her. Blanche pulls the file from under his arm and starts to leaf through to check. "Let's see, yes. Bayou St. John, I thought it was. He managed to get an apartment there that is not exactly up to code. It floods him out most summers, but he can just about afford the rent on it now he has properly signed up for Social Security. Was there an addiction problem, I seem to recall?" "Alcohol, yes. He attended court-ordered AA, but he's not shown up there in a while, like months." I have to go and ask him again about the poison case at the Pont d'Avignon Hotel. You care to come with?" Blanche tries to hide her beaming smile. She acts like this is all in a day's work, but the truth is she's really thrilled. Being involved in such a high-profile case will expand her knowledge and be great for her career. Charles is known as a hotshot, being promoted rapidly, and she is flattered he chose her to help. They jump in his vehicle and make the trip to Bayou St. John, taking Harrison Avenue through City Park. "You live near here, Blanche?" "Tremé, sir. I'll give you a ride home once we're done." This being the fall, they find Emmanuel Peters sitting inside his house. "No evacuation necessary this summer, thank you, Lord Jesus," he explains. "You want some sweet tea? The lady next door makes it for me. She's a pretty thing." Charles keeps his notes and pen hidden. "Tell me about Miss Julie's party, would you, friend? That man from out of town steps foot in New Orleans and someone decides to kill him off. Who do you think would do such a thing?" "Well, it was not me, I know that much." Emmanuel fishes in the hip pocket of his sweatpants for a small miniature of Fireball cinnamon whiskey and drains it in one gulp. "And Miss Julie would not do it either. She believes that it is a sin to take a life." "There were 10 other people sitting around that table who could have done it," Charles continues in his conversational tone. "How about Lopez? He has always been a live wire. Done time in jail before now, I seem to recall." "Well, I wouldn't know anything about that," Emmanuel interrupts in a sharp tone. "Instead of pointing fingers at folks because you think of them as criminals, you might want to consider who stands to gain from the man being dead. I don't want to tell you how to do your job, detective." "You're right, of course," Charles smiles. "We're looking into everyone's financial affairs and leaving no stone unturned. We want to know who was linked to this man." "You heard it wasn't even Miss Julie's brother, I guess?" "I did. Pretty screwy, if you ask me. She writes her long-lost brother, and then some other man shows up? So who was he, and how did he get the letter? And why kill him? And where is the real brother?" "I don't have the answers to those questions yet, sir, but I will." Blanche chips in with some questions she has rehearsed with Charles in the car. "Do Depending on who knew that this man was not Julie's brother at all, he might have been killed for who he actually was, not who he was mistaken for. Well, then you have a whole different motive, Emmanuel says slowly as the fireball hits his system. None of us knew that guy. How can you be so sure? Charles wants to know. I mean, not one of us around that table seemed surprised to see him, did we? Emmanuel explains. No one pointed out that he wasn't the brother. No, I believe that none of us invited to the party had ever met Julie's actual brother, and none of us had met this guy who died. Miss Julie should have known whether it was her real brother or not, Charles continues. I don't know, man. Emmanuel is not sure. They haven't seen each other for, 60 years? That is a very long time. Miss Julie needs to wear eyeglasses, but she does not, as she thinks that eating cherries will have the same effect. Cherries do not work, by the way. And besides, she has said that she thought he was walking a little differently than she remembered. But she explained that away to herself, thinking that the old gentleman walks with a cane now, and of course he finds walking hard at his age. No, I do not believe that a soul around that table realised that this man was not Roosevelt. Unless they were working together, Blanche chips in. Imagine if someone around that table is expecting him, knows full well that it is not the brother coming, but somebody else. Then what are we left with? Who could have been in cahoots with the imposter? So then, Charles is thinking through what she is suggesting. By that logic, presumably the imposter did not know that he was about to be betrayed by the accomplice. He wouldn't have shown up at the party and drunk the champagne if he thought he was about to die. A double cross? So what did he think he was doing there? Emmanuel asked the question in all of their minds. Why go there and walk into the trap? Why pose as the rich guy, the millionaire who is going to make all of our problems disappear? I still want my share of the money, by the way. Charles pushes on, ignoring him. Could someone else have been the intended victim? After a moment's thought, Blanche guesses Miss Julie herself, and in that case, could an accomplice try again to kill her? That old lady wants to be careful, Emmanuel spits. If I were her, I would let everyone around town believe that I haven't received the money after all, and that I'm not worth killing. I would also take care to keep any money I did inherit in a separate trust that none of these folks could get their hands on. Ooh, that's the end of chapter 22. And we're moving on to chapter 23, which is called Telling Stories. I think I'll do that tomorrow as I'm getting a little bit croaky and I don't want to start coughing. Let me know who you think is the murderer, who you think did the murder. And don't forget to subscribe. Night-night.